Ready or Not is quite familiar with tragedy. Whether it be a horrific event that mirrors our world's problems or something that genuinely just makes your stomach turn, Ready or Not has it. Something that isn't talked about as much in this game, though, are the more subtle examples of tragedy. For every mass shooting, there is a robbery gone wrong. For every terrorist attack, there is a rundown crack house. While the more controversial levels get all of the attention and praise, I feel that these smaller, more innocuous ones do a lot of the heavy lifting. In my personal opinion, I actually prefer these smaller maps over the larger, more extravagant ones, because most of the time they're self-contained. You don't need all of this additional context to make sense of the situation. And when you do that as a developer, you make it a lot easier for players to understand and empathize with what you're saying. You make your experience feel more personal. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a lot of different tragedy in this game, but the most tragic level isn't a terrorist attack or a cult or even a school shooting. It's at a small, quiet home on the ends of the earth. Ends of the Earth is regarded by many as being one of the saddest levels in Ready or Not. We're initially told in our briefing that the home that we're raiding is that of what used to be an ordinary family. However, a grim twist of fate would send them all into a darkness that they've never experienced before. The family's mother, Hugh Nguyen, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. To put it simply, she's dying. And this game being set in a fictional Los Angeles means that the family is currently experiencing the US healthcare system. And dying here is, for lack of a better term, very expensive. The family's father is retired and too old to work, and the only gainful employment that we know of is that one of the boys is a mechanical engineer. But that's not enough. The medical bills have been piling up and the family just isn't able to keep pace. And unable to procure enough money for their mother's treatment legally, the boys have decided to turn to more illicit means of income. The eldest, Andy, has been using his engineering knowledge to create illegal gun modifications, and the younger two, Tom and Vinny, have been organizing the sale and distribution of these modified weapons. It's really a shame when you think about it, because these three brilliant minds found more money in crime than they ever did in regular society, and this is all just in an attempt to care for their dying mother. Now, regardless of how we feel about this situation, personally, what these boys are doing is very illegal. They're taking semi-automatic weapons and modifying them in a way that makes them fully automatic, which serves no purpose other than maximizing the potential loss of life. And with all of the mass shootings that we see in this game, I think it's safe to assume that some of the guns in those attacks, regardless of their intentions, were made by these boys. So we need to go in and stop them before they can make them for anyone else. When we arrive to the scene and walk around outside, we can see that trash buildup that we mentioned in the previous episode. It appears that the garbage union is still on strike at this point in the game, and we can't help but wonder when this conflict will finally be resolved. Outside, we can also find a small gardening shed and the crumbled remnants of a pool overlooking the beach. When we finally make our way inside of the house, though, there really isn't anything noteworthy. After all, this isn't some creepy cult or human trafficking ring. This is the home of an ordinary family. On the walls, we can see some traditional art, as well as some old family photos. And the more we look around, the more we just start to feel sorry for these people. In the kitchen, we can see that the counter is overflowing with medical bills, all with the notice "past due" stamped on the front. Certain areas of the home have also fallen into complete disrepair, as it seems that the family doesn't have the time nor funds necessary to maintain their property. What hurts the most, though, is a voicemail that has been left on the answering machine.
Miss Nguyen, this is Alana Tran. You came into our station yesterday with your husband, and I'm calling to follow up if you have time for a visit today. I know you're unwell, so we're happy to meet someplace outside of your home for a quick chat. No lights, no sirens. We'll come in plain clothes. The two of you hinted at your boys doing something. I'm sure that if we can get on top of this and convince your boys to do the right thing, we could get a deal going that sees your sons doing minimal time. Vinny can probably get off with probation too. So, across the board, it's good news. We're here to help, but we need to act now. See you soon.
Now, this call insinuates that although the parents are understanding of their boys' actions, they still disapprove of them. They understand that there are very real consequences to what their sons are doing. The mother, who once again is dying of cancer, decides that she won't let her sickness lead to the downfall of her boys, which has got to be just one of the worst pains that you could ever experience as a parent, right? You don't want to get your children in trouble with the law, but at the same time, you don't want this life to end up killing them, especially if they're doing all of this for you. But thanks to the mother's call and some further investigation, we end up obtaining 3 arrest warrants, 1 for each of her sons. As we continue forward though, we'll try our best to use less lethal force. I don't think this family needs any more heartbreak than they're already experiencing. If we make our way upstairs, we'll find all 3 of the boys' bedrooms. One of the rooms is simply adorned in workout equipment, but the other 2 actually have some more crucial details that are worth mentioning. The first is what I imagine to be Vinny's room. On his desk sits a computer monitor and a 3D printer. The computer's web browser is opened up to a 3D printing site, specifically for gun parts. On this page, we can see the description of a part called an autosear, which holds the hammer in the cocked position while the bolt of the weapon is cycling, essentially transforming a semi-automatic gun into one that is fully auto. So this is more than likely the modification that they've been adding onto these guns. And it's interesting to see that they've simply just been printing the parts off of the internet. Anyways though, if we continue on over into Andy's bedroom, we can find several things of note. On one of his computer monitors is a casino website, and on a nearby table we can see a poker set and a strategy sheet for blackjack. Now, what I imagine is happening here is that the brothers have been laundering their money from their gun business through a local casino. For those of you who aren't familiar with this concept, allow me to explain. Whenever you make a lot of money doing illegal activities, you can't just deposit it into your bank account. The IRS is very suspicious of large, unusual amounts of money coming out of nowhere. And if they find out that this money has been obtained illegally, then you go to jail. However, in this case, if you go and gamble this money at a casino and then walk away with your winnings, then suddenly that money doesn't seem as suspicious. It looks like casino winnings. And after all, if you have receipts and evidence to prove it, then why would anyone ever question that money's origin? They might lose some of this money at the casino, but everything that they can walk away with is good, clean profit. This information is further confirmed when we find a letter from the National Revenue Service, which notes discrepancies between the family's spending versus their stated income. This letter probably really freaked the boys out, so they quickly jumped to using the casino as a way to launder their money. Anyways though, if we make our way out of this room and to the left, we'll find the mom's room, which has been retrofitted into a sort of at-home hospital. It's obvious that the boys took great care in preparing this room for their mom. Everything that she might need is within arm's reach of her bed. Hell, they even moved the TV up closer just so she can see it more clearly. I know I've mentioned it at length here before, but I really love the human element in Ready or Not's environment. The devs always do a good job at making the world feel true to the situation. There are so many things in this game that are super easy to glance over, but once you stop and think about them, it only helps to further build the experience. For example, in the bathroom next to the mother's room, we can find a chair in the shower. The mother has become so weak from her treatments that she's unable to stand safely on the slick surface. I feel that every mission in Ready or Not has that one little detail that sticks out from the others, and for me, it was this. And while there are many better things that I could have empathized with in this level, the simple placement of a chair is what did it for me. Aside from all of this though, there's really only one other place that we need to clear at this point: the attic. Now when we make our way up the stairs and into the attic, we're almost always met with gunfire from one of the brothers. It seems that at least one of them is always waiting for us upstairs. And once we look around, it makes sense, because this is the room where we'll find all of their weapon manufacturing equipment. And while I don't really have any clue on what I'm looking at here, it seems that this room plays a crucial role in the boys' process. However, once we report this and detain any other suspects, the mission comes to an end. Ends of the Earth is probably the most depressing level in Ready or Not. The game really does make you feel like you're the bad guy for arresting these people. And while we understand that their actions might have far-reaching consequences, we can't help but feel a little sorry for them. They found themselves in a situation that is truly a lose-lose. Either the boys sit back and watch their mother die before their eyes, or they turn to a life of crime just to afford a few more minutes with her. It's easy for us to point our finger and say that the boys did wrong, but I imagine that many of us, if placed in the same situation to afford care for someone that we truly loved and cared for, we might do the same. The tragedy of the mission only grows once you consider the repercussions of your involvement. If you try to resolve the situation peacefully, most if not all of the boys are going to be locked away for a long time. Federal weapons charges aren't necessarily huge, but when paired with money laundering and violently resisting arrest, it carries quite a hefty sentence. The mother isn't going to be able to receive the care that she needs to survive because her sons won't be here to provide for her, and she'll die without any of her sons by her side. And that's the good ending. If you take a less cautious approach during this operation and you kill the sons, it's safe to assume that the same thing happens. Except this time, the mother dies with the knowledge that her call to police resulted in the death of her sons. She is inadvertently responsible for killing her boys. And if you say, hey, what if I just don't play the mission? Then nobody dies and there's no blood on my hands. But again, you're wrong. Because the weapons that these boys are manufacturing are directly responsible for countless deaths around the city, maybe even responsible for the mass shootings that we see in this game. So regardless of your action or inaction, somebody somewhere is going to suffer. I think Ends of the Earth is probably one of the best examples of a quiet tragedy. It tells the story of a family who has been torn apart by a diagnosis, and the actions of the men, while horrific in their nature, have a sliver of innocence behind them. Oftentimes in this game, we'll find ourselves empathizing with the victims, but in this level, we find ourselves feeling sorry for the criminals as well. I'm really interested in hearing what you all think about this though. Do you think that the boys deserve redemption, or are they nothing more than common crooks? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. As always though, I hope you guys have been doing well. You know I love you. I'm out.